They're mamas, and we're going to share this morning. But we're going to just say Happy Mother's Day to all of you moms, spiritual moms, moms of babies in heaven. Happy Mother's Day to all of you. And we just wanted to take a moment before we dive into our panel this morning, and I wanted to tell you about these bottles. If you did not see, they would have been on the station in the entrance, and then also this family station in the back. These are for the Pregnancy Resource Center. We do this every year. They give us these bottles on Mother's Day. And it's change for life. You fill it with change. For those of you who don't know what change is, those are coins that you get back when you use paper money. I know that's kind of going away, but they will take any type of money. You don't have to put change in here, so maybe you don't have a lot of change. You can fill it with cash. You can use the QR code and scan and give online that way. But we, as a church, have these. We fill them up with change. We bring them back on Father's Day, or if it's already full, you can bring it back, and we will make sure that we get those to the Pregnancy Resource Center. So many ladies from our church have been able to go to the Pregnancy Resource Center, whether it was sonograms or diapers or just encouragement in classes. And so we just want to make sure that we're continuing to pour in to a ministry that's so much needed and continues to pour into our city. All right, so y'all make sure, just grab one per family, and let's get those filled up. All right. Okay, well, I'm so excited to be a part of this panel this morning. So I'm going to do the introductions, and then Pastor Vanjie is actually the MC of the day. The pressure. But I just wanted to do the introductions. So if you don't already know, I'm Pastor Leslie. My husband, Josh, and I are the founding pastors of Overflow Church. I've been a mom for almost 20 years. My daughter turns 20 this summer. And come August, I will have half of my kids in the house living with me and half of the kids no longer in the house. And that is just kind of wild but good. I have kind of two sets of kids. But my favorite stage of life was probably when all four of the kids lived in the house at the same time, because I got to see like all the stages almost at once, you know, like the baby, the toddler, and just so you know, this year I have one in college, one in high school, one in elementary school, and I skipped one in middle school and one in elementary school. This is the only year that will happen. It's just the wildness. But anyways, so that was my favorite season, and it just really went by really fast. So this is the amazing Bree Hargrove. Bree Hargrove has been a mom for 12 years next month. Her oldest turns 12. And her current stage of motherhood is having young children. She has little ones of all of us here. You have the youngest ones. Her favorite season, she said, was when Elijah and Abby were about 3 to 7 years old, because they played well together and hardly fought, which we all know that's a good stage when there's not a lot of fighting. And they were also just curious about the world and asked lots of questions, so it was just really fun to answer all their questions. Then we have Pastor Vanjie over here. Woo, woo, woo. She has been a mom for nearly 28 years because she had her first kid at the age of 5. I'm just kidding. 10, yeah. 10. And her current stage of motherhood is an empty nester, which some people love it, but she does not. But we're so excited. Embrace every stage, right?
Yes.
So she said that nearly every stage was her favorite, but especially the newborns and then the late teen years. The in-betweens were kind of a blur because her kids are only about a year apart. But it really flew by once they hit middle school, which is so true. And last but certainly not least, we have Christina, the bold and the beautiful. And Christina became a mom for the first time at the age of 20 to a sweet baby boy named Caleb Josiah, who resides in heaven. A year later, she had Christamar Noel, and 10 years later, she had Aliana Michael. So she's on the long plan. She's like, I'm just going to space them out so I have them forever. And their final womb baby that she had at the age of 46 is with his brother in heaven. And so she also represents the grandmas. Where my grandma's at? Woo, woo, woo. And so she has 3 beautiful grandsons, Matthew, Alejandro, and Ezra. And she also has dozens of spiritual sons and daughters that God has helped her to be able to mother. And her favorite stage she said she enjoyed every moment, but what's the most memorable is when she was a single mom and just pressing in through the struggle when it was only the 3 of them. But you also, from us up here, have the most spiritual children. So why don't you speak to that for a minute?
Alrighty. Well, hello, everyone. Shout out to my spiritual sons and daughters. And some of them are married, which makes it a little weird, but... So I wanted to speak on the power of the word mother. So when you hear someone say that they're speaking in their mother tongue, it's their native language. Unpredictable source of, let's say, tornadoes and earthquakes and hurricanes, you call it Mother Nature. Good job. And then when someone hits the mother load, that's usually riches. And then when someone refers to their motherland, wanting to go back home that they came from. One of the things that I read that was pretty profound to me is if you want to understand a person, first ask them about their mother and then listen carefully. And so, depending on our experiences, mother can nurture, mother can destroy. Mother is a powerful source of life. I have found that when we use the word mother as a verb versus a noun, it is far more impactful and far more powerful. We, being people of the way, we're all called to mother. Men as well. We mother other people's children. We call them, we impact them because we call them out into their calling, into their role that they will be playing the rest of their life. We also mother each other in that we care for them or one another, we comfort one another, and we are concerned about one another. Also, people of the way are called to give birth. We birth life from ideas to visions, to creative expressions, ministries to movements. And we birth others by inviting them into more intimacy with Jesus, a deeper realm of healing. And women, you are not less of a woman because you aren't married, you don't have a spouse, or because you haven't born a child. We are image bearers, and our hearts are far more vast than the physical. And that's what I have to say.
That is so good, and we're done. She did it. We can go home now. No.
I was gonna cry.
So when my kiddos were teenagers, and I was having thoughts or issues with how to teach them and show them when they're 16, 17, I felt like God told me one thing. He told me to ask questions. And there's so much in asking questions. When you ask questions, you learn. You learn where their heart is. You learn where their struggles are. You learn what they already know. And then you know how to teach them because you've learned how to go about it. So asking questions is my favorite. So I have 3, maybe 4 questions here. So here we go. Question number 1. Being a mom, a wife, daughter, sister, or working woman, how do you find or make time to spend with the Lord?
So for me, I shared this earlier, so much of our lives as women, as mothers, as sisters, they're hidden from the eyes of the world. Everything that happens within our heart and within our homes. And for me, I have to live in an intimate relationship and an intimate partnership with God. So that's where he does his best work. So it's constantly, but I can afford to do that because I'm an empty nester. I don't have babies at home. And
I have babies at home. I am not an empty nester. And so I found that discipline through the years is what really brought me to where I am now with having a devotional time. So whenever they're really little and they're just attached to me because they're nursing, or I'm holding them because it's the only way they'll take a nap, or whatever, and making sure the toddler doesn't burn down the house, whatever that looks like in that season, because I had the discipline through those years to just keep showing up even though I didn't feel like I wanted to, or I was too tired or whatever, got me to where I am now, which is not where I have a want even, but more of a necessity. Like I feel it in my soul that I need that time with the Lord, or it's like breathing. The rest of my day doesn't even make any sense if I don't have it. And I said this in the first service and wanted to say it again because a few moms caught me afterwards and said that they felt really encouraged by it. If you are a sleep-deprived mom, and I don't even just mean that you have a newborn, maybe it's your 3-year-old or 8-year-old. I don't know who's not sleeping through the night still or whatever, and you are sleep deprived. That is not your time. It is not your season to wake up at 5 a.m. to meet with the Lord, and that's okay. I hope that encourages someone else in here, because I had kids who didn't sleep very well, and I would hear about all these other moms who would wake up so early to meet with the Lord, and I felt like, I can't do that. I want rest, and rest is holy, and it is good.
Yes,
the Lord, yes, he created it for a reason. Sleep is beautiful, and so if you're not having much of that and you're sleep deprived, it's not your season to wake up at 5 a.m. But with the fact that I have little kids at home, I have a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old. They understand, though, or almost 12. They understand when I say, hey, mommy's studying right now, I can answer your 15 questions later. They get that, but my 3-year-old does not, and nor would she care. Even if she did understand, she would be like, come wipe my booty for me. So potty training is the worst. But if I adjust my expectations and I sit down and I know that this could take 20 to 30 minutes, most likely it'll take an hour to finish my study time, getting into the Word, that's okay. That's the season I'm in right now, and that's going to change, is what all of them are telling me. And so that's going to change one day. So just adjusting your expectations even, which is just a little practical tip for moms of young children.
It's so true. I think the amount of times you get up and down from your seat as a young mom or a mom with young kids is like so many times. Yeah, it literally is like, oh, stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. I think for me, what I've tried to do is seek the Lord in the mundane things, because no matter what, whether we're just a stay-at-home mom or a working mom or just a working individual, the list is never ending. There's always going to be more to do. The laundry's waiting on you. Dishes are waiting on you. Our houses look like people live in them because people do live in them, and then they have to be cleaned all over again. Our tasks are never ending. And so I find that I seek the Lord in the mundane things. As I'm doing dishes or as I'm doing laundry, I just try to say, tune in to see what he might be speaking to me, or just include him in that moment. I think so many times we think okay, I have to spend time with God, and that looks like sitting here quiet with nothing else. Well, good luck when you have kids at home and you're a stay-at-home mom and you homeschool. There's hardly ever quiet. And if there is quiet, that's scary. Something is happening in the other room that is probably, something is broken, okay? But I think even recently I was really overwhelmed and feeling, not about motherhood, but just about some life and some stuff in my job relation. And I was like, Lord, what is going on? Why are we changing again? I'm not a person who likes change, and I have to deal with it all the time because it's just part of the world. But I was sitting on our back deck, and we have this little birdhouse, not because we love birds, but because we love things on clearance. And it was on clearance, and half of the things in our house were purchased on clearance. They get us every time. They're like Target. They're like, look at this red sticker. Now it's yellow. It used to be red. That's how long we've been in this. But we have this birdhouse in the backyard, and it was sitting there. And actually, we've had it up for a few years, and every year a different bird has kind of used it. So it's been vacant for a while. And as I was kind of asking the Lord and almost having a little temper tantrum internally, I didn't let it out. A bird came and landed on there and perched on there. And I was like, oh, of course, Lord, you take care of the birds of the air. You're going to take care of me. And so just finding him in the things that you can see with your eyes and you can touch with your hands sometimes is so necessary, because he's always moving in the unseen realm. And so sometimes he'll speak to us very clearly in things that we can see, so that he doesn't feel so far away. So for me, it's not just, yes, having time with him is important, but also just introducing or allowing him to come into everything of the day. He's omnipresent. He's always moving. He's always doing something. So tuning into him and, just seeking him. Lord, what are you saying in this moment? What can I learn from you in this? And just, he's constantly waiting for us to turn our gaze to him. It's us that get busy, but he's eager and ready to meet with us no matter what we're going through.
I love that. In the mundane, he's there. You know what I mean? And regardless of what it is you're doing, dishes, sweeping, laundry, he's there. And he, like Pastor Leslie said, he is just waiting for you to just look at him, and it doesn't have to be an hour at 5:00 in the morning. It can be throughout the day. It could be little snippets. It could just be Jesus. It could be help. It could be anything. He's there. He hears. And I think we want to put it in this pretty wraps little thing that we need to seek his face at 4 a.m. for 3 hours, and then we'll be the mom that we're supposed to be. But if we lean on him 24 hours a day, we're going to be the mom that we need to be. Okay, so how have you taught your children to handle dreams, experiences, losses, and or hardships in a godly way?
That would be me. As I said earlier, grace and mercy is the simple answer, because for me, the most important thing that we receive from our mom or our mothers, and the most important thing that we can offer our children is mercy.
Yeah.
Because it's kindness, compassion, and comfort, and it triumphs over judgment. And grace is the forgiveness and the favor that we received, that we should freely give our own children. And because our relationship with our mothers have affected us, like to our core, and it shaped us who we have become, we are meant to be and to show the merciful face of God. Finger pointing, hands on your hips, that was disappointing looks, remarks, they do have their place. It's just not first place.
Yeah, that's so good.
Discipline and correction and the wisdom that you want to impart to your children, they will not carry the weight that it needs to carry if we are not showing them, or rather if it's not founded on that mercy and grace. Because they learn from us, they too will become merciful and gracious people. I need a crack.
Do we have tissues up here again? I feel like,
Put them down.
I got mine. So speaking specifically to the grief and loss and hardship part of that, there were about 5 years where our family just suffered and survived. We just had blow after blow of hardship on our family. And my kids saw me, they grew in grief because they saw me grieve openly, and they saw me just seek the face of God for my family, for my womb, for my husband, for my marriage. And that laid a foundation for them and taught them, one, that they don't have to run and hide whenever grief is happening, or they get hit with a hardship or whatever that is. And they're going to leave my home one day, and they're going to have moments of, most likely, their faith unraveling, which is what I was walking through at that time. And they're going to have hardships hit them, and I won't be there. I might be there, but they might go through a lot of that with other people. And they're going to remember that time that they would pass by the living room and they would see their mom with her face in the carpet, seeking the face of God. Even though I was confused, even though I sometimes felt like, maybe we're not friends, Jesus. We were. But I thought, maybe I don't want to be in the Lord anymore. And they saw me go through that, and then they got to see the aftermath, which was so much joy. There were prayers that were answered. Some prayers still haven't been answered yet, and that's okay, because we're going to keep seeking the face of God for that. But they got to see a lot of the aftermath of joy, and they get to know that, okay, so that comes next. It's not always going to hurt this bad. It's not always going to be this awful. And I feel like with them getting to see that other part, we do them a disservice when we hide that. Because then all they see is the joy, and they never see the other part of the hardship.
Yeah, and they're like, why am I feeling this way?
Right.
Be,
They didn't
because
see.
mom's always happy.
Yes, and they didn't see the mourning turn to dancing. They didn't see any of that. So.
Yeah,
That's so good. Yeah, in the same fashion, it's important for kids to see their parents argue, because a lot of times people, when they get older, if they never saw their parents argue and then they're married and then they have an argument which is unnormal, they think that they're not normal, or they're broken, or their marriage is not going to survive because maybe their parents fought, outside in the car, or, never said anything to each other. But just like they need to be able to see that that's real, they also need to see the resolve, which is what you were saying. And so there's power in them seeing, okay, in life, I'm going to hit hard times, and that's okay, because I know I'll make it through, or, and it's okay if you fight, and then you make up. So it's so important that our kids get a front row seat to that, and that we remember that they're watching. They're always watching. Yeah. Even when you don't want them to. So I think for me, what's been a hard thing as a mom in our kids when their faith is kind of being tested is whenever you're encouraging your kids, like if they're like, oh, I can't sleep, or I'm having bad dreams, or maybe they're having some issues at school or something like that, and they're feeling overwhelmed, and we're like, well, let's pray about it. But in their mind, it should happen immediately. It's like we live in a now generation where we want our Wi-Fi fast, and we want our food delivered by Uber Eats. We don't have to wait for anything. And so it's really hard when your kids look back at you and say, well, God doesn't hear me. Like, I've already prayed that and he didn't do it. But encouraging them to press through that, and telling them also that what you're feeling is not the truth. I can understand that you are feeling that, but God is there, and God is real, and he does hear you, and he is working on your behalf, and we're going to keep on praying until we see it, just like the word says, to keep on praying, keep on knocking, and the door will be answered to you. So it's just important to encourage them to keep on pressing through, and then once that victory comes, then they start to build their faith journey, and they have milestones that they can look back on, even if they might not see the answer right away. And then as they've gotten older, they have that fruit, and they've been able to start their faith journey early on. And it's like, it's not like, oh, they turn 18 and now they have to figure everything out. It's like they can look back and they can know the truth, especially now, once kids go out into the world and college, it's like everything bad's going to come at them at the same time. So it's so important that they can have these principles, and they can grow on your faith. They can stand on your shoulders and just be able to have that insight on how to handle situations and how to press in through hard situations.
I love that. And then watching the process. From the morning to the dancing, watching the process. And then when they experience themselves, all it takes is one time. Because then when they're in hardship, they can look back at that time and be like, I remember then that he was who I needed him to be. He was who he says he is. He was my peace. He was my strength. He was my deliverer. He was my provider. All it takes is that one time to build faith, and then another time happens. And then another time happens. And standing and remembering and talking to your children about them. So when it is hard, do you remember what God did? Do you remember when we prayed? For us, do you remember when we prayed for Gigi to get healed from stage 4 cancer? He did it. Do you remember when? Blah, blah, blah. And he did it. And just remembering those things. I think it's so easy to remember the hard and talk about the hard. When we're talking in front of our kids about the hard, guess what? They're going to hear all about the hard. But if we flip the script, yes, we went through hard times. But then God did this, and he showed up in this way, and he did this, and he delivered us, and he restored us and redeemed us.
I was talking to a friend between services and realized this connection, but I was like, we were talking about how you seek the face of God even when your faith is crumbling. And I was like, I don't really know why I knew to do that. I just did. And then it clicked for me. I was like, I saw my mom in her prayer closet all the time growing up. And I know she went through some stuff. And so I realized, I was like, even though I'm 34 and I just made that connection, that foundation must have been built up by watching her do that. And then I got to do the same for my kids, and will continue to do the same for them.
Same. Every morning and every night, my mom was on her knees. That'll always be a memory that not just showed a legacy that she has created through her prayers, but a faithfulness. Even when, because obviously I was in the family, so I knew what was going on in our family. Even when it was hard, she was on her knees. Even when it was good, she was on her knees. So I think that they're always watching, and it leaves an impact on your children. I'm just going to speak to the dreams real quick about the experiences and the hardship. I'm a dreamer, so I dream. And I think it's so important when your children have God dreams, to encourage those God dreams, to encourage them, but to remind our children to keep them with an open hand, because we have these expectations and these timelines, but that's not the way God works. If it's a God dream, it will happen. It just might not be in the time frame, in the way that we think it's going to happen. But so, I try to teach my kids, it's like this, it will happen. Keep watching, keep waiting, but it may not be the way that you expect it to be. Okay. Oh, sorry. Do you need a tissue? What are some of the lessons that you have learned through different ages and stages of your children? How have those lessons helped you relate or rely on the Lord? We've done this before. We should have been better. We should have known.
It should be easier now. Thank you, my dear.
Shut up. We good? Another question?
One of, I think, the most common mistake is, especially when you have a daughter, is to believe that she's a mini me, or daughters, to believe that our daughters are a reflection, or actually an extension of ourselves, which, I said earlier, renders a verdict on us when they don't choose the way you would choose, or they don't make that decision the way that you would. And so what happens then, it falls on a mom to feel and thinking that their sorrows, their pain are your fault. And so what I have learned as I've grown in mercy and grace, and just pursuing Jesus, is that those thoughts, their tormenting thoughts, are not the Holy Spirit convicting me to be a better mom or to live a better life. It's the enemy wanting me to agree with him. that I was a failure as a mom or I didn't do things right. And so, again, it's an accusation of the enemy causing me to despair or to spiral downward into feeling like self-contempt and guilt when we've already been redeemed of all that.
That's right.
So by giving the Holy Spirit access to vanquish those thoughts and fill it with his truth, that is one of the things that I've learned. Also that your identity as a mother is not based on your child. As well as daughter, your identity is not based on your mother.
That's so good.
It's one of the things that I have learned. It's a hard one.
Yeah.
But speaking of identity, I think this is like one of my favorite, thank you, Pastor Josh. When I met him, he just really opened my eyes to identity, who I am in Christ. But when you're young, when you're little, when you're a little girl, from your little girl to your adolescent stage is the critical shift, is what I call it. Dads, if you have little girls, highly recommend the book Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters, because this is the absolute critical point in their life where they need you the most. Second would be your young lady to your woman stage is called, it's your discovery shift. That's discovering who you are. And then we will shift to from bride to wife. That is your shared life identity. This is the stage where I said earlier, y'all start talking like each other. You and your husband start looking like each other, dressing like each other. And so then you're someone's wife. And then we go into the stage, or the shift rather, where we're talking about your mom stage. And that's when you basically lose your identity. You are now someone's mother. Yeah. That would be AJ's mom. And you're not Evie anymore. You don't belong to yourself. It's also a stage where you kind of tend to lose your mind a little bit because you don't know where you stand. You don't know who you are. And this is when you really need to nurture your heart, ladies. I said earlier, you think of it as oxygen on a plane. You cannot help your child unless you help yourself. And you can't, I think that's a stage that a lot of us just kind of get a little lost in. But my final stage that I'm super excited about is the grandmother stage and the spiritual mother stage. Yes, this is where your heart expands, because in the kingdom, love doesn't divide, it just multiplies. And I recall not understanding when my grandmother would tell me, this is going to hurt me a lot worse than it hurts you, but now I do. I have discovered something worse than my own suffering. It's walking along someone who's in pain, walking along someone that you absolutely love that is in pain. And far worse grief than that is being far away from your own children or your grandchildren, because you're not able to love them the way that they deserve to be loved. But as grandparents, you get to love that child all over again. It's a moment in time where it rewinds, where you hear the same giggle, the same laugh, and you get to hold the same hands. And scientists have proved that grandparents live longer when they're around their grandbabies. So bring them on, babies. Bring them on.
I don't know what age my kids were at when I learned this, but I know that they were really little. But I learned the power of apologizing. Don't ever underestimate the power of a parent who can apologize to their children when they mess up. And in turn, that teaches them the power of apologizing to people, because they're going to have to do it forever. And also, we're both learning, me as their parent, them as the children, the power in forgiveness and forgiving each other. And forgiving quickly is another thing. My kids forgive me so fast. They don't hold grudges for nothing. With each other, they probably do, but not with me. And then also, I think something I learned is accepting that the next stage is going to be so good. I spent and wasted way too much time with my older two just mourning when they would get older. Like, I would get so sad looking at their newborn clothes, and I would just be like, they're never going to fit into this tiny little onesie ever again. And I would get so bummed about it. And I'd be like, we're leaving this stage. I don't get to nurse them anymore. I don't get to rock them anymore and things like that. And for people like Leslie and I, who just thought we were going to have 1 million children, maybe not 1 million, but like our husbands would never.
But 1,000 maybe?
But we were like really, really genuinely upset when like one of them would like wean and they would like move on to toddlerhood and stuff. But we have talked about this often.
If you are in our church and you are in labor, we are texting each other because we just love babies and moms and labor and birth.
All of it.
Yes.
Yeah. So accepting that the next stage, like, God's already writing the next chapter of my kids' lives. So just knowing that his hand is already there, whatever it is, because it can be a little scary. Like, I don't know what it's like to walk into teenagehood. I am terrified. Yeah. I don't know what it's, I have no idea what that's like. I don't know what it's like to have grandkids. That sounds so exciting, though. But accepting that the next stage, it's not a loss. Like, I'm glad now to watch my 3-year-old go to the next stage. I get very excited because I know what's coming now. Everything that my soon-to-be 12-year-old does is for the first time because he's my oldest. So knowing that, like, oh, this is coming up and this is coming up. Maybe this was a little hard, but I know how to handle it a little better, and just accepting the next chapter is going to be good.
Yes. And I just remembered there was something I wanted to say in first service when you said that, and then I forgot, so I'm going to say it now. Okay. I also want to say for moms, give yourself grace because you've never done it before. You don't know, no matter how many parenting books there are, every child's different. And so if you are a firstborn, love your parents and give them grace. We found out with our oldest by trial and error that maybe we should have done things a little different. And, they always say, like, we couldn't get away with anything. And then their younger siblings are like, hey, what's up? So just give yourself grace. Parents are figuring it out with you because they've never done it before. So just be gracious to your parents. I think for me, in this current season, I'm a person who doesn't like change. I don't deal with change well. I'm getting better. As my husband likes to encourage me, I am getting better. But I could eat the same thing every day. I could wear the same 5 shirts over and over, and my life would be great.
She's been wearing like the same pair of earrings for like 30 years.
Yes.
So just
so you know. I don't change them, ever. Anyways, so I think for me, I'm learning to embrace that change, whether our kids are really young. I remember with my youngest, I had Group B strep or whatever it was called, and I was terrified to go to sleep because I was like, the first 6 weeks, he might die. And I was terrified. And so but then of course, sleep deprived, I don't function, so I just had to trust that God was going to watch over him better than I could. And it's the same now when my children are moving out. I have to entrust that God is going to continue to watch over them better than I can. And similarly, in previous seasons, I think most of you know, maybe you don't, but our youngest son, Uriah, has an extra Y chromosome, and that's why he's almost as tall as me at 10 years old. It just makes him really tall. And so in finding that out when he was almost 1, that was pretty scary. Here I am, I've had 4 kids. I already think I know what I'm doing. Like, I've got the swing of this. Like, I could do this blindfolded. But no, surprise, here, you've never dealt with this. How about this? And so in that season, through weekly therapy and countless doctor's appointments and all this, not talking when his peers are talking, not walking when his peers are walking, struggling emotionally still now when his friends are not in that same stage, I had to choose to trust God over the fear of the circumstances, especially in the earlier years. It's so hard, like you were saying, when somebody that you love is hurting. When babies are sick, it's the worst because they can't tell you what it is. It's like, is it your ear? Is it your stomach? Like, it's just like, it's the constant end game. But knowing that God knows all these things, and we have the mind of Christ, so we can know these things through his grace and mercy. It's just so important to trust him over the fear of that situation. So, of course, there's been times when I wanted to run for the hills and be like, I need a day off, peace, but I'm not going to still get a day off for probably another 10 years maybe. But then I've learned that I know, as these ladies have shared in the emptiness, that there's going to be a season where I miss what I have right now. I already know that I miss when all 4 of my kids were in my same house and we prayed as a family, and I knew where they were sleeping and I knew that they were safe. And I don't have that anymore. So I'm just learning to embrace that one day I'm going to miss this. The saying is, the days are long, but the years are short, is so true, because I literally keep telling people, we just moved here to start a church, and that was that was when our oldest was going into the second grade, and now she's entering her last year of college. So it just goes by so fast. And so just learning to embrace each season, like you were saying, not necessarily grieve what's you're losing and not worrying about what's coming ahead, but just taking it for what it is, because one day you won't have it anymore and you'll miss it. And so it really is important just to honor it and cherish it and learn what you need to learn through it before it slips away through your fingers.
That is so good. So good. I think for me, the biggest lesson that I learned, me and my sister, there's a little bit of an age gap, but our second born are 2 months apart. So my brother-in-law had this profound thought. However, I did not find it profound. I found it offensive. He told my sister, if you tell anything to my sister, I will find out. That's what we do. There are no secrets. I know it all. So he told my sister, stop taking raising the kids, how they respond to you. Stop taking it so seriously. And I was like, no, not serious. Stop taking it so personally. And I was like, it is personal. Everything about it is personal. But as the kiddos got a little bit older and a little bit older, I was like, man, he was onto something a long time ago. Stop taking it so personally. I had to shift it. It's not about me. And I think when we realize that our kiddos are not there to fill a need in us, we're there to fulfill a need in them for however long we have them, and then they're graduating or not wanting to move back home or whatever it is. But when that is the case, it's like, man, mom, dad, job well done. You know what I mean? Because they're independent. But so yeah, I feel like that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, is to not take it personally, that it's not about me. I thought about the talents. One buried his, the other multiplied his. Our children are like our talents. And when we bury them, we just keep them here, and we don't want nothing to happen to them. We don't want them to grow. We don't want them to leave. We're just going to bury them. It doesn't teach them. It doesn't point them to Jesus. So our talents are like our investment. Our investment are our children. But what do we want to invest in? We want to invest in the kingdom. So if we are teaching them every day, all day, if we're pointing them to Jesus, then we are investing in the kingdom of God, and that's where it's at. Not about whether or not they hurt my feelings or they didn't listen to me. How dare they not listen to me? Don't they know I'm their mom? No, it's about Jesus. It's about pointing them back to Jesus in every situation, in every fear, in every doubt. It's about just pointing them to Jesus. And so that's the other lesson learned. So my brother-in-law, wherever you are, it's a good lesson. I take it. I receive it now. Stop taking it so personal. But so that is one of the biggest lessons that I learned. And Christina kind of also touched on it. The other thing is, in the crazy of being a mom to littles, you lose your identity. So I'll never forget, Pastor Leslie was talking about in the mundane. That's when we seek God, when they're little, because that's the only time you have, basically. I remember I was unloading the dishwasher, and I was like, Lord, because the kids were starting to be teenagers, and I'm like, Lord, is this it? Is this what I'm going to be? Just mom? What happens when they leave? Just wife? What happens if something were to and he's like, you're neither. You're not mom, you're wife. You're not mom. You're not just wife. You're daughter. That's who you are. You are daughter. And that changed my life, unloading the dishwasher. That changed my life. He just whispered one word, daughter. And that is another one of my biggest lessons. The power of apology. I love that. I love that, because when they see you apologize, kids, it doesn't matter what you say, it's what you do. That's what teaches them. Doing something by example is the best lesson you will ever teach your kids. You can say all the things you want, but they're watching. What do you do? So when they see you humble yourself, when they see you extend grace, you're being a representation, not of yourself, but of who Christ is. So you are extending grace. You're showing them who Jesus is. And you're showing what it looks like to be Jesus with skin on, so that they can then do it. So there's so much power in our identity, in the power of apology, and in seeking God in the mundane. There is so much. y'all all did like an amazing job. I have one more question for y'all.
You, ma'am, you did an amazing job.
I have one more question. What has God taught or walked you through most recently? What do you feel like God has taught you?
Not to take it personally.
Yeah. She's like,
just right now, from last service and this service. I think that going back to the spiritual sons and daughters, like you, I was stopped out here, and I did not realize the things that we speak and the things that we say really will impact somebody. But earlier, I was saying that as I was in the beginning of service worshiping, I cannot tell you how proud I am of these sons and daughters, these spiritual daughters, not only my own children, but this church mothers well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I do believe it's our leadership. You all know how to be examples of mothers, fathers, pastors, and you love well, and we learn from you. So during this season, what I've learned is that this church mothers well.
Breathe deep. I feel like recently I've learned that pleading the blood of Jesus is so powerful over my children. Specifically, our youngest, she has some genetic mutations that we found out about. We did genetic testing like 2 years ago, and we still don't fully know what those are, or what they mean. There's no like specific diagnosis or anything, so I can't even like speak to a lot of that, but I do know that I can plead the blood of the Lord over her and for healing inside of her little body. And that's what I've learned. I do want to caveat my little thing that I said in first service, and I didn't know where to put it in, so I'm just gonna do it right now. Okay, so sorry. But the Lord kind of dropped this into my heart during first service because he sandwiched me between these two. And Banji wasn't here yet, so that's the only reason she's not a part of this story. I'm sure that she would have found a place in here, but she was not here yet. But several years ago, when we had our last miscarriage, Christina was working at the PRC. And this is speaking to the power of community, and specifically Overflow does that really well. Like you were just saying, we mother really well in the leadership and stuff, but the power of community at Overflow is, I have never seen it anywhere else. And so Christina was working at the PRC, and that's where I went in to get a sonogram and found out that my baby didn't have a heartbeat. And Christina came in to sit with me because my husband had to go into the waiting room with our two older children. So I didn't have anyone in there with me, and she came in and she sat next to me as I found out, and as we looked for a heartbeat and didn't find one. I did so good the first service. And Christina just stroked my hair, and she kissed my forehead, and she mothered me. She really mothered me through that moment when my husband couldn't be there to hold my hand. So, and then when we got in the van to go home that day, I didn't want to go home. I looked at my husband and I said, "Take me to Josh and Leslie's." And he took me to my pastor's house, and so Christina was there to mother me through that moment, and they were there to pastor us, and they would continue to pastor us for quite a while afterwards because that was a really heavy loss, and we had to grieve that for a while. But that just speaks to the power of community, and you need that community. Like, this is just a shameless plug for groups and being at the furnace and being involved and doing things and doing life shoulder to shoulder with these people, because they are going to see you through every hardship if you let them.
That's so good. I think the most recent lesson that I've learned is I've watched my son Judah, who's about to graduate from high school, and with our kiddos, we did elementary school, and then when they hit middle school, we did like an online public school because it's scary out there in the real world. But Judah kept telling me, "I'm going to go back one day, I'm going to go back one day," and I was like, "Okay, we'll see." And so finally, this last year, as his senior year, he was like, "Well, this is my last opportunity. I'm going to take it because I want to just see what it's like. I want to see what I've been missing." And I'm just going to be real honest. I thought he would do 6 weeks and be like, "Nah, it's not much. I'm not missing much. I'm just going to go back to sleeping till 10 and finishing school in 2 hours." But he didn't. He thrived, and he's done amazing, and he's made so many friends. And this past Friday, he led worship for his Bible club at school, and the first month of school, he got nominated for like Senior Boy of the Month. And so here I am limiting him on what I think he's gonna do. And God's like, no, I have so much more for him, you know? And similarly, like with Uriah, I can look at his diagnosis and I can put these limits on him because that's what the world says. Or I can say, no, I'm believing that God has more for him than what the world says, or God has more in store for him than what I can do. And so I think it's important for us to just take the limits off when we feel like a situation's going a certain way, or when we're afraid to let the kids move out. You know, take the limits off, aim high, dream big, trust God that he can do more in their life and that his plan is better than your own. And so I've definitely learned that I don't need to try to predict what my kids' life is going to look like, because he has more in store for them than I can, and just to pray them through that season when it's scary. I was joking in first service that, you know, sometimes when I call my oldest on FaceTime and she doesn't answer with her camera, I'm like, where you at? What you doing? You know, she's a grown adult. I'm like, turn that camera on, you know. But, you know, we have to trust that the seeds that we've sown and the prayers that we prayed on the carpet, that they've witnessed it, and that nothing is wasted, and that God is going to raise them up on a strong foundation, and the word says, train a child in the way they should go, and when they're older they will not depart from it. So that's what we're doing. We are working the ground, parents. We are working the ground. And it's so important too, I mentioned in first service that, you know, it's the natural process of life for people as they get older to pass away. So, you know, maybe your mother's passed away and now you have a spiritual mother, but there will be even a season when those spiritual mothers will pass away. And that's when it's so important to have the sisterhood that we have, because, you know, you're going to have that moment where you're like, man, I just really wish I could talk to my mom right now. And I'm so thankful that my mom is still here on earth, but I can't imagine what that must feel like to want to have that encouragement or just the listening ear of a mom, and not having it there. So that's why it's so important to have it in relationship and in community, so that when you are having that need for that mom phone call, you know, that you have other people that you can rely on. So,
And that's for men too.
yes, absolutely.
The
Yes.
dudes too.
Yes, always community.
We need it. And yeah, like you said, we have the best community here. We're totally plugging Overflow, but it's that good. It really is. So the biggest lesson I learned, I'm going to back up, even though it's the biggest lesson I've learned most recently, is when the kiddos were little, probably like 2 and 3, they're 15 months apart. And when we had our son, our firstborn was so sweet and so chill and so, you know, just, we told you to sit down, she sat down, okay? Our son, he like came out running and jumping off things. And so he was about 2, she was 3, we were like, we're done. This is it. We don't need any more kids ever again. And then they turned about 6 or 7. I was like, well, babe, maybe. And he's like, no, absolutely not. We're not. And I was like, but what if no. So then I started, you know, in James, where it talks about true religion is to care for the widows and the orphans. And God just put it on my heart so heavy. And I'm like, okay, I feel like the Lord wants me to be a foster parent. So I told my husband, let's foster. And he's like, babe, we already raised our kids. We're almost done. Why would you know? And so for like 15 years, I tried to be on the same page as fostering, you know, as us fostering. And finally, when we moved here, it took like 15 years, he's like, okay, I think I'm ready. I'm like, you're ready? He's like, yes, I think I'm ready. So we start filling out the paperwork, and we had just moved here, and my brother, he passed away. And then a few months after that, my father-in-law passed away. So in mid filling out those papers, we just stopped. I mean, we were totally like blindsided, and that kind of just fell, you know, and it wasn't this important thing. But being a part of Overflow, and more recently, like probably the last year and a half, there are so many younger moms here that their moms live in a different state, or they don't have a good relationship with their mom, or their moms don't know the Lord, so they can't lean on them for, you know, godly counsel, whatever it may be. But I started learning and realizing that I am a foster mom. I didn't have to go through the process. I get to be a mom or a tia to so many young women here, and it's an honor and it's a privilege. I didn't know it. I didn't even think about it and realize it until recently. And moms or women, you get to be that too. whether you have physical babies or not, you get to be. Did you say at this service, oh, you called it a verb, but to mother can also be a verb. You get to mother. Yes, you get to mother people. And that's what we do here at Overflow. We mother each other. We have a sisterhood. We have a community. And go be a mom to somebody because they need it. Go be a grandma to somebody because they need it. You don't have to give birth. Although we do give birth to dreams and ideas, we don't have to give birth to be a mother figure to someone. So, yeah.
So good. Thank you, ladies. Y'all are awesome. Oh, Josh wants you to say
the
that
science.
you shared.
The science.
It was so good. It like rocked us all, so now we need it.
I'm sorry.
He was waiting for the science.
Here's the science. Okay. And then you're going to back that up. Yeah. Okay. Scientifically, you will back that up.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay.
I got you.
That scientists have discovered the miracle of motherhood. Cells are exchanged and they remain in their body for the rest of your life. When mother gets sick or diseased, these cells rush to fight the infected area. Cells of their child runs to the defense of their mother, fighting to save her life as her daughter did her grandmother's.
So good. And also on the same thing, I discovered, of course you know it, but when somebody says it, you're like, of course that makes sense. So when a little girl is born, she has every egg in her body that she will ever have. They don't make more like men that make them forever, but they only have what they're born with. And so if, as a girl, the egg that you were born from was in your mother's body when your grandmother was pregnant with your mother. And so it's just a legacy. It's always going. There's always more. God's always working in the background and knitting things together. But
thank you so much for joining us today at Overflow Church. Make sure and comment below and let us know that you are here to encounter Jesus with us today. Also, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything coming from us in the future. Have a great week.